Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Coffee. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how Disney is retconning the sequel trilogy. That's today here on Star Wars Coffee. I've addressed this once before, and it seems that this is still continuing, so I thought that I would address it again. So what we're having all over the internet, especially in the Star Wars community, is this idea that for some reason Disney is going to reboot the sequel trilogy. This is not going to happen. They're not just going to take all this money that they've spent and essentially flush it down the drain. So all of that money that they spent on The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker in terms of production, let alone pre-production, all of the props, all of the marketing, all of the home release, all of the merchandise, they're not just gonna redo the entire sequel trilogy, and George Lucas is not coming back. And I've addressed both of these topics in separate videos that you can find on the channel if you're interested in the sequel trilogy reboot thing and the George Lucas coming back issue. I've addressed both of those, so you can check those out. But what we're going to do today is talk about how Disney is retconning the sequel trilogy while keeping the movies. So what they're doing is they're not going to be remaking the movies, but they can retcon whatever they please by providing backdoor information through other various mediums. And the reason that they're doing this through other mediums is because only diehard fans, so likely if you're watching this channel you would probably consider yourself a massive Star Wars fan, myself included in this, we're the only ones who essentially go throughout these other mediums and are targeted towards people like us who want to continue to consume Star Wars beyond the silver screen. So we will be the ones who pick up the copies of these books, of all of these comics, of all of these smaller TV series, and this is how the retconning will be done. It will not be done on an actual theater screen. So we can talk about how Kathleen Kennedy is proud of these films, whatever your opinion of her is. There will be no retconning or reshooting of the sequel trilogy while she is still in charge at Lucasfilm. Now, I myself would love to see George Lucas come back, as I think everybody would, but I don't see that happening. And while Kathleen Kennedy's contract is up in a couple of years, while she may not decide to come back, I do not think she will be fired. So the other mediums that Disney's going to be retconning the sequel trilogy with is going to start not only with the audiobook that we've already gotten for The Rise of Skywalker, the novelization, so you can read the physical book for that, you can listen to the audiobook for that. You can also take a look at all of these other things that they've done prior to The Rise of Skywalker, which includes The Last Jedi, with their comic series that led up to The Last Jedi, as well as The Force Awakens, up to The Force Awakens. Phasma got her own book, so that way they took her character and gave it a little bit more of continuity. So they've done this several different ways. Poe has gotten his own comic and his own books. They launched the Resistance TV show to continue to tie into the sequel trilogy era. There's been book adaptations for all three of these. Both of these books, including the Rise of Skywalker's books, include new scenes and new information from the film that tie in with the film, that also provide backdoor information about how things were figured out during the film that we didn't get to see on screen. And the next way I believe that Disney is going to be doing this in terms of other mediums and retconning the sequel trilogy is with the Rise of Skywalker comic book adaptation. So while they've already done the novelization, the author of the audiobook said that there are scenes in here that came from deleted scenes that she's kind of added context to. But in the comic book adaptation, it's been said that there's going to be scenes that were not even originally thought of for this film, which means that the writers of The Rise of Skywalker did not come up with these ideas. Were not deleted scenes that have been included at this point. They are simply completely new creations out of whole cloth by this author and by this writer who's doing the comic adaptation, where none of this was ever even thought of in terms of the actual production of the film, which provides the ability, and since you remember Disney has to allow this to happen, Disney is allowing this to happen in order to retcon some of the trilogy, and specifically The Rise of Skywalker with this one. Many of you, myself included, felt that the first act of the film was a little rushed. I know that there was much more to the Mustafar aspect of the film. Hux and Pride were supposed to be on there, and at some point, you know, whenever Disney decides to release those deleted scenes, we will see that. You can look in the audiobook though, or the novelization book, however you want to view it, listen to it. You can see that extended scene. I actually think I did a video of it on the channel when that scene, because that was one of the first retcons, if you will, that was released for The Rise of Skywalker, given more context to the Mustafar. This also included a character that I talk about in the full movie leaked that I did on the channel. You can check that out too and see how well that tracked with the actual movie. And there's scenes in there that didn't make the final cut of the film that we know are deleted scenes, and we know they're deleted scenes because they're included in the audiobook. So Disney will not be completely reshooting and rebooting the entire sequel trilogy. That's not going to happen. They would have to re-sign all those actors or hire new actors. The amount of money that it would take is completely ridiculous, especially considering the fact that they're putting all of this continuity together. They're tying everything together throughout all of these different mediums. Like in the Voices of the Jedi that Ray heard, you had those prequel trilogies, you had the Clone Wars tied in there. So there's no way they're going to be completely redoing that, especially with the amount of money alone that would take, let alone that a lot of fans, including higher ups at Lucasfilm, especially the newer Star Wars fans who didn't grow up in the prequel trilogy era or the original trilogy era, they are gonna, this is their version of that. So I grew up during the prequel trilogy, my father grew up during the original trilogy, he loves the original trilogy the best. I grew up during the prequel trilogy, I have a different type of fondness for those, but obviously I prefer the original trilogy. But all I'm saying is that the fondness that you have towards these movies are dependent upon the nostalgia. There's always a nostalgia aspect in Star Wars. And retconning and rebooting this entire thing that many of us and this younger generation that has grown up with since 2015, so for the last 5 years, that's not going to just be pried away, especially with the amount of merchandising that was done. It's not just going to be thrown into the Legends pit. So what I wanted to do is address, and hopefully you now understand how Disney's able to retcon the sequel trilogy while maintaining the films in the lineup of continuity. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, check out Patreon, Twitter, all of that other stuff, Twitch. May God bless you and the Force be with you always. If you enjoyed this episode, and frankly, even if you didn't, don't forget to subscribe.
Do it.
And if you want to help spread the word, please give this video a thumbs up and tell your friends to subscribe. Please check out the official Star Wars Coffee merchandise, and don't forget to check out all of the content playlists on this channel, including The Rise of Skywalker, The Mandalorian, and much more.